Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that lovely quick quip there. That was, of course, the sound of spring awakening across the Great Lakes region. That's right. That was the sound of the little tiny spring peeper, one of the first frogs to pop out for the year. Our great graphic designer down at Michigan Sea Grant in downstate Michigan just recorded that at a nearby marsh, and hopefully you're starting to hear those signs of spring all around you too today. So one of those kind of great signs of springs are the reemergence of things like frogs and toads. And today we're going to be talking all about herpetology, and particularly amphibians. So I hope you're excited to dive into some of these great things. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the Homes at Home series brought to you by Michigan Sea Grant and MSU Extension, where we explore awesome creatures, critters, and places in the Great Lakes region, and then give you a challenge to learn more and to help steward the Great Lakes. So we always start out with the 5 Great Lakes, and so we're going to review those on super speed today. I want to see how fast you can shout out the names of the Great Lakes. Each Great Lake starts with a different letter in the acronym HOMES. So we'll start with the H. Shout it out. What lake is H? Huron. Now go to O. What lake is O? Ontario. Now go to the M. What lake is M? Michigan. Now go to the E. What lake is E? Erie. And finally the S. What lake is S? Superior. Hopefully you're getting those nice and quick down now, everyone. H-O-M-E-S. That's right, H-O-M-E-S. That means homes. That means the Great Lakes. 20% of the world's surface fresh water. It's an amazing resource. And one of the coolest things that lives in that Great Lakes region, of course, are frogs and toads, all sorts of different things that live out there. But these in particular are pretty spectacular. So I'm going to share with you today about herpetology. So herpetology, and we're actually going to get to speak to a real herpetologist here in the Great Lakes region. But herpetology is the study of amphibians and reptiles. So herpetologists are those that actually work and research with reptiles like toads, or not toads, turtles and lizards and snakes. And then we'll also talk a lot about amphibians today. Now, amphibians, of course, are cold-blooded. They have vertebrae, and they typically need a moist environment to survive, and that's because they have permeable skin. We'll get into that more later, but if you want to learn more about Michigan frog, toads, and salamanders, I recommend the field guide and pocket reference from MSU Extension, the Michigan Frog, Toads, and Salamanders book that you can get at the resource link that we just shared. But also the DNR has a great website where it highlights all of our different frog and toad species in Michigan. We actually have 26 different amphibian species in Michigan, around 12 frogs and toads, or around 12 different salamanders, and then one additional weird thing. I believe it's called a mud puppy. But anyway, we're not getting into that today. Let's talk about those different frogs and toads and salamanders. So I'm going to go through with you today 5 of the different Great Lakes states, state official amphibian, all right? And we're going to see if you can guess them, and I'm going to share some really crazy facts about each of these different state official frog, toads, or amphibians. So here we go. Let's start out with Minnesota, that wonderful state over there. That's a big state and has a nice little chunk of Lake Superior over on the west end there. Their state official amphibian looks like this. It's that frog up there in the top right. He's got little tiny spots all over him. He's actually named after a big giant cat that's ferocious and growls. Do you know the name of this frog? It's a northern leopard frog. That's right, a northern leopard frog. And guess what? Those hang out in pretty big groups all across the Lake Superior region. And when they're in a big group, the official name for a group of frogs is an army. So watch out for those armies of frogs out there. Actually, they're pretty great to have around. They eat a lot of bugs and pesky things like mosquitoes. So I like having leopard frogs. All right, let's hop over down to Illinois there on the shores of Lake Michigan in that Chicago region. And let's take a look at what their state amphibian is. Oh, this one's a little different. This one's not a frog or toad. This is a salamander. Now, this salamander is also named after another big cat. This one has stripes instead of spots. Do you know the name of this salamander? It's the Eastern tiger salamander. Eastern tiger salamanders are so cool. I love every time I get to see one of these. And one of the craziest things about them is that if they happen to get an arm chopped off, because some bird's like, you look yummy, and tries to eat it and their arm falls off, well, guess what? They can actually regrow limbs in some cases. So he could just be like, I'm fine, and regrow a new limb. That's a crazy fact, I think. All right, let's hop over to that great state of Ohio down there at the bottom. Ohio, right along the shores of Lake Erie. The wonderful, nice, shallow, warm water lake. What's their state amphibian, you say? Well, it's the largest frog in all of North America. And this frog can get up to 1.5 pounds. They're actually quite tasty. They're a pretty big frog. Do you know the name of this frog? Shout it out at home if you do. It's the American bullfrog. That's right. Now they're called a bullfrog because some people back in the day were like, I think that sounds like a cow because they make this kind of deep sort of noise. I don't really think it sounds like a cow, but somebody did, and so they named it a bullfrog. That's why it's called a bullfrog. All right, let's head over to New York, the last state with an official amphibian or frog. And this amphibian is probably my favorite amphibian in all of the Great Lakes region. They have this nice dark mask, and they actually are more commonly found on the moist forest floor than in a pond or in a river or a lake or a stream like the other folks. So this amphibian is named after the fact that it hangs out in the woods a lot. It is a wood frog. So one of the craziest things about a wood frog is that in the winter, when it gets really cold, they just burrow down into the leaves and then they freeze. That's right. Wood frogs in their hibernation stop their heart, stop breathing, and 65% of the water inside of them turns to ice. That's nuts. Can you imagine just freezing every winter, just chilling literally for a while, and then in the spring they just thaw out, start hopping around again and doing their thing. Now that's pretty awesome. Now Michigan doesn't have an actual official state amphibian, but I am just going to throw one up there for Michigan. This one's found all across the Lake Huron region and much of the entire continent of North America. This one is the spring peeper. This was that super loud one we heard at the start of that video. These things could be deafening. Literally, I've been next to ponds where I can hardly hear the person next to me because they're so loud. They're one of the first frogs to come out of hibernation. And they have a nice brown X on the back, which is a good way to identify them. So I hope you enjoyed learning about those 5 frogs. And I definitely encourage you to check out the DNR website or to get yourself one of those Michigan frog toad books out there. Right now, we're going to jump over to the joke of the day. That's right. We don't really always have a joke of the day, but I was sent some awesome jokes and you're going to love them or groan. I don't know. Let's go. Question: what do stylish frogs wear? Any guesses out there? Shout out a guess. A stylish frog wears a jumpsuit because they jump like a frog. Okay, that one wasn't great. I got another one though. Okay, why are frogs so happy? They eat whatever bugs them because they eat bugs. The bugs them that makes them happy. All right, maybe those weren't so great. Maybe we'll ditch that section, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty funny. So now we're gonna jump over to a good friend of mine, Sean. He's over at Pruss Pets, an awesome pet store down in the Lansing area. If you're ever around there, go check it out. And he's going to share us a little bit more about amphibians and show us some actual live frogs. So let's have Sean take it away.
Hi guys, my name is Sean Murphy and I'm a herpetologist here in the state of Michigan. I'm at the wonderful Pruss Pets today and I'm here to talk to you about some different types of frogs. Behind me is a wonderful array of different types of frogs from around the world. The one specifically I'm going to talk to you today about is actually the green tree frog. I'll give you an up-close look here in a minute, but first we're going to go over a little bit of information. Great tree frogs are native to the east coast and southern part of the United States. They're actually very similar to gray tree frogs that we have here in the state of Michigan. Both are very good at a few different types of camouflage because of the environments that they live in. Typically, we're going to be finding frogs in forest-type environments near standing bodies of water. Because of that, there's lots of green vegetation, but there's also different types of blacks, browns, and grays in the environment due to the trees. Now, the gray tree frogs that are here in the state of Michigan, mainly they're gray, brown, and black. Sometimes they'll be a little bit green. That helps them to blend in with all the different trees and leaf litter that are around them. But the green tree frogs, because they live in a more humid and almost jungle-like environment because of being on the East Coast and South, are almost always various shades of green and sometimes yellow. Now, frogs are pretty amazing creatures because of the way that their skin acts. Basically, their skin is like a sponge. They can breathe both air and water through their skin. We call that semi-permeable. They're basically a walking sponge, and if something is in their environment that's harmful, they'll be the first ones to tell us that something's wrong. So because of this, we call them an indicator species. Now, because of this, if you ever see frogs, or even toads, salamanders, or newts, it's best not to handle them if you see them. If you do decide that you need to handle them for whatever reason, you want to get your hands wet with some natural water. Stay away from things like city water because it can add chloride and chloramine that can actually harm the frogs. Now, I'm going to give you an up-close look here at some of the green tree frogs so you have a better idea what they look at. So, you give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and flip this camera around for you to see. Now, right up close here is a little guy. He's probably about a year or two old. And my hands are already wet, so I'm going to try getting a hold of him. And as you can see, he's dark green right now, which they can change the shades of green that they are based on temperature and also based on essentially their mood. If they feel more in danger, they can start to change their skin tone a little bit to match their surroundings. Also, if they are a bit cold, they can turn darker temperatures to absorb more heat. He's also got that brilliant white line that goes down his face. That helps him distinguish him away from gray tree frogs. This line is also part of his camouflage, kind of making him look like the edges of leaves or branches. And you can see they're kind of curious. He's looking around looking for something he's going to jump on, and most likely he's going to try jumping on me. And he's got those big wide eyes. Those help him to see various movements. These guys mainly eat insects. Sometimes they'll eat things like small earthworms, but for the most part they're looking for things like flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, crickets, things like that. Now, sometimes their stomach is a bit bigger than what their eyes can handle, so we try to maintain a certain feeding regimen with them, and that is looking at the distance between their eyes is about how big their food should be. Like I said, sometimes they will try to eat things that are much larger, and they can have a little bit of difficulty with it, but they'll try anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and put this guy back. Like I mentioned, frogs are very, very unique animals. They're an indicator species, and just like the great tree frogs that we have here in the state of Michigan, these little green tree frogs are very, very cute. So hope that helps you guys out, and have a great day.
Wow, Sean, that was a cute little frog right there. I'm so glad that we got to learn a little bit more about them. Let me show you here a picture of the gray tree frog. So like Sean said, that was the green tree frog, and the green tree frog is native to the eastern and southern part of North America here. And then of course the gray tree frog is the one that we have here in Michigan. Now these frogs are very similar, like he said, but one thing that I think is particularly crazy is when you get to hear them. So you can see he's a little bit darker in color, but they can color it gray or gray and black or green and yellow. But one of the craziest things, like I said, is if you just take a listen to this frog. That's a loud little guy right there, isn't he? Yeah, now those frogs are really important for our ecosystem and our environment. They eat all sorts of critters. And like Sean said, when you see a wild frog or toad, it's really important to not touch those frogs or toads because you can have chemicals or other things on your hands that can really hurt them. And John wanted me to mention too, to make sure that you know that wild frogs and toads in Michigan and in all the Great Lakes states and provinces are not allowed to be kept as pets. That's right, they're protected. You need a permit to keep a frog or toad. So if you see a frog or toad outside, don't bring them inside. They're happy out there. That's where they like to live. Make sure you leave them out there because they're illegal to bring inside as a pet. If you really want a pet frog or toad, head off to one of your local pet shops that ethically sources their critters like Bruce Pets does, and they will teach you how to take care of a good one. But for most frogs and toads that you find outside in the wild, leave them out there. But if you see a frog out in the wild, well, you can actually do something and you can actually report that frog to the Michigan Herp Atlas. Now, the Michigan Herp Atlas is a system out there for any citizen across the state of Michigan to report their sightings of amphibians or reptiles. And this is really important because we don't know everything about where these creatures live, and some of them are very rare, endangered, or threatened. The eastern box turtle, for example, is poached a lot of the time for pet to be taken inside as a pet. And it's really important that we don't just broadcast where those are, but instead you can go to the Herp Atlas and you can report those sightings to the DNR so we can have more information about where these things are and how to keep them safe and how to keep them out there doing their thing, which is mainly eating bugs for us. That's pretty great, isn't it?
Hey, Elliot, did you know that a single toad can eat about 100 insects, worms, and grubs every single day?
100? Oh my, whoa, that's a lot of bugs. I didn't know it was that many. I knew they could, and Mary, I can't believe you're here. This is so awesome, everyone. This is my great friend, Mary. She's another one of our Michigan Sea Grant Extension educators. Introduce yourself, Mary.
Hi, Elliot. I am Mary Bowling, and I'm a Sea Grant educator, like you said, and I'm in the metropolitan Detroit area. I actually put together a little video for our Homes at Home challenge. Do you want to roll that tape?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, let's learn about our challenge today for the Homes at Home series.
Today's Homes at Home challenge is to build your very own frog or toad house made out of some simple things that I hope you have laying around your own house. In this case, we're using a terracotta pot to provide the structure for the home and some leaves to help hold the moisture in the soil and a small trowel or shovel to help us just make the site ready for the home to be built. So first you need to pick a good location in your backyard for your frog and toad habitat. They like places that are moist soil, and also a little bit shaded throughout the day. So I've chosen this raised garden area that is right next to the downspout for my garage, and it'll collect water when it rains. And then I've got some soil and some rocks in there to provide some habitat. I've also planted some perennial plants in there, and those are plants that are going to come up every year. So I've got some lilies and some other things. They haven't started coming up yet, but I do have some taller grasses. You know, frogs and toads, they need some place to hide from predators. And so this is going to be a good start until those perennials start growing in. All right, so you can see I've prepared the soil. All I did was really just loosen up the soil a little bit, just because frogs and toads, they like to burrow into the moist soil. So I've made it a little bit easier for them to get in there. I'm gonna take my leaves and just sprinkle them a little bit. And it's okay if some of them are damp. That's actually a good thing. That's again gonna hold that moisture in the soil. And last thing I'm gonna do is take my piece of terracotta. This is just, again, something that broke and I'm reusing it. And I've put a little note on there that this is a toad house so that everybody knows not to disturb it. And I'm gonna set that on top. And one thing I wanna do is I wanna make sure that there's enough room in there. I'm gonna push that down to where there's a little door for the frogs and toads to be able to get inside that house. We wanna give them some room. And really that's all we have to do to make our frog and toad house. Once it rains, that water is gonna come in, moisten that soil up, and make it a great habitat for the frog and toad. So here's our completed toad house. Again, you can see it has that little doorway for the frogs and toads to be able to get inside there. It's going to stay nice and cool in the summertime because of that clay pot. Nice and moist because of the downspout right there by the toad house. But also you can have fun and add a few more things if you like. No need to, but you can just add these as options. In this case, I have added a solar light. Frogs and toads love to eat insects and worms and slugs. This solar light will actually attract those insects to the area and make it easier for the toad to capture them. I'm also just decorating the area up with a few other things. Here's a nice little garden gnome and a squirrel and, of course, a toadstool for the toad. And there you have it. Here is our completed frog and toad garden.
Thanks, Elliot. I hope all our viewers will join the challenge. And but don't worry if you don't have any of the clay pots laying around. Something like this. If you don't have that, don't worry. You can use other things. You can use an old storage container. Anything you have. Maybe you have an old potted plant container. You can use that, or you can even use a milk carton. So really anything that you have that's gonna help hold that moisture and eliminate some of the sun from the area, you can decorate it up and just make sure that you cut it down to fit the space that you have. And don't forget to leave that door. You need an opening so that the frog and toad can get inside.
Wow, Mary, that's so cool. I had no idea that you could actually make a home for a little toad. That's so awesome. And the fact that they eat all those bugs, I definitely want a few of those homes in my garden because I have quite a few bug issues there. So I hope you enjoyed learning about different frogs, toads, the different amphibians across the Great Lakes region today. A big shout out and thanks to Sean and Prus's Pets for showing us their green tree frog there, and a big thanks to my friend Mary for telling us how to do our toad house, which is again your challenge. Remember, if you complete 5 of the Homes at Homes challenges, could be this frog one, could be ones from our earlier videos, which you can find on our Homes at Homes website. If you complete 5 of them, on our Homes at Homes website is a survey for you to fill out and get your own Great Lakes Scientist certificate. And if you want, you can be featured with your name proudly displayed on our Hall of Great Lakes Heroes on our Homes at Homes website. So it looks like we've got just the right amount of time for some questions and answers. We're going to try to answer the ones we can. We might not know all your answers. I know, for example, yesterday, I think I gave a wrong answer. There are 27 species of sturgeon in the world, not 150. So don't believe everything you hear, but we're going to give our best shot. So let's do some question and answer time.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cindy, and like Elliot and Mary, I'm part of the Michigan Sea Grant team. I usually work on the campus at MSU, but today I'm actually in my home in Lansing, and I'm going to be asking your questions. If you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A box, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, put your questions in the comments, and we'll see how many we can get to today. So, Elliot, one of the things that someone asked, and you may have answered this, but I wasn't sure. Do frogs have bones?
Ah, yes, definitely. So they are vertebrate, right? They put them in the whole category of vertebrate, which are animals that have backbones of some kind. And so they definitely have backbones. They have all sorts of different bones throughout their bodies, in their fingers. Their actual bone structure isn't that different than many of the other mammals and other creatures. They've got hips bones, they've got the head bone, they've got the neck bone, and they're all connected just like the song goes. So yes, they have bones. The big difference between amphibians though, and say mammals or birds, one, their body temperature is regulated by their environment. So their body temperature doesn't change or stay consistent like ours does. It actually changes with the environment. The other big thing that makes them amphibians in particular is that their skin is permeable, like Sean told us about. Stuff actually goes in and out. They can actually partially breathe through their skin, absorb oxygen through their skin. So that's what makes amphibians different, but they have bones.
Great. Do you have any idea how far frogs and toads can actually jump?
That's a good question that I don't have an exact answer to. I know I've seen them hopping around, and it definitely depends on the size of the frog or toad. They can definitely jump farther than their own body length, and they can actually jump multiple feet farther than their own body length. I've seen gray tree frogs, like the green tree frog and the one we showed, jump upwards of at least 2 feet, which is a long ways. But I don't know the exact distance that they can jump, but they can jump pretty far.
I know some places they even have festivals where they have contests to see how far frogs can jump. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. Do you have any, we're going to give you another chance on this numbers game, Elliot. Do you have any idea how many types of frogs there are?
In the world, I have no idea. But I do know in Michigan, we have 12 types of frogs and toads. We have 2 species of toads, the eastern American toad and the Fowler's toad, which is a little more rare toad. It's in only the lower peninsula. And then we have 10 different species of frogs. There's all sorts of different great ones like the leopard frog, the pickerel frog, which has spots. You've got the American bullfrog, the big one there. You've got wood frog and spring peeper, which are kind of our brown frogs, a cricket frog, a Blanchard's cricket frog, which is a little itty bitty super cute one. That is actually a threatened species in Michigan. I think I probably missed a few of the other ones there, but I do know we have 12 frogs and toads in the state of Michigan. Worldwide, I don't know, but hopefully somebody can go figure that out and put it in the Facebook comments for us so we know.
Do you have any idea if frogs have teeth?
That's a great question. Mary, do you have any idea?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
I don't know either. The problem is we don't have the herpetologist here. I should have brought John back. He would probably know.
We'll have to ask him the next time we see him. That's for sure. Now, one person wants to know, what is your favorite frog?
Mary, why don't you start out answering that one?
Well, I really like the leopard frog that you showed earlier. That's, I think it was the state of Minnesota frog. That leopard frog is just really nice, has a contrast between the greens and the yellows, and it really makes a great sound too.
Yeah, it really pops. It's a neat frog. And like I said earlier, my favorite frog is the wood frog, that woodland critter that hops around with that dark mask and freezes every winter.
What are some of the predators that frogs have out in the wild?
Yeah, so depends on the species of frog and the size of the frog. All frogs start out as eggs and tadpoles. And when they're eggs and tadpoles, that's when they're most vulnerable. Like a lot of our fish species too. Those eggs and tadpoles can be predator or preyed upon by fish, or even by large bugs that can go up and start chewing through them. There's probably different bacteria or fungus that could possibly infect them. And so there's a lot of things that like frogs and tadpoles. When they get a little bigger, probably one of the biggest predators, again, would be fish. If you've ever gone fishing, you might have actually used a lure that looks just like a frog. That's great if you want to catch maybe like walleye or pike or something. But then also birds. Birds love frogs, especially herons. I remember if you go back to the first Homes at Homes, my friend Kevin, the great blue heron, he loves eating frogs. And he has a nice sharp dagger-like bill where they'll wait on the edge of a pond until they see a frog and wha-pow, go right out and get it. So frogs are predators definitely to fish or prey to fish and birds. Those are some of the primary folks that like to eat frogs.
And sometimes even other amphibians, like salamanders, will eat frogs.
Whoa, I didn't know that. I do know I've seen a snake eat a toad too. So yeah, either other amphibians and reptiles will also eat frogs.
Do people ever eat frogs?
Yes. You can actually find American bullfrog on the menu at quite a few, not quite a few, but some restaurants here, and a lot more restaurants down south where they have frog farms. Actually, they raise bullfrogs on a farm just like they would any other critter, like a cow or a pig, and then they eat the legs mostly. The legs, a lot of people say, taste like chicken. I've got a restaurant right up here that I go to every once in a while, and I occasionally have some frog legs. They're quite tasty. So they're not wild frogs, but they are a type of American bullfrog that's raised on farms that a lot of people do like to eat.
Wow. Well, I'm watching the clock here and we're almost out of time. I did want to point out that somebody put an answer to one of our questions in the Zoom chat, that most frogs do in fact have teeth of a sort. They have a ridge of very small cone teeth around the upper edge of their jaw. Frogs often also have what are called Vollmerian teeth on the roof of their mouth. They don't have anything that would be called teeth on their lower jaw, so they usually swallow their food whole. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, frogs are really, really fascinating. Wow. So thank you so much, Mary and Elliot and our friends at Preuss Pets for joining us. Remember, next week we're going to be here again, both on Tuesday and Thursday, same time, same link, and we're going to have more fun planned, learning about our Great Lakes and about the critters that live in them. So if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can find them at our Michigan Sea grant website, michiganseagrant.org. So please tell your friends and join us for another fun episode of Homes at Home. And we hope that we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.